Mayor Jones, thanks for being here to answer some questions for us.
Yes.
You are a candidate in a four-person race. Why are you the best person to lead the city of St. Louis?
Well, I believe we've made a lot of progress in the last 4 years. When I came in office in April of 2021, homicides were at an all-time high. We were in a hiring freeze, services weren't getting delivered, and our jail was literally on fire. And we've made a lot of progress, and there's more progress to come. Homicides are down 40% since I became mayor, juvenile or youth-involved shootings down 50%, and we've increased our emergency response times by over 60%. And we've got a lot more work to do, and I want to continue this progress in moving St. Louis forward.
You mentioned some of those crime stats. Homicides, shootings are down dramatically in the city of St. Louis. How do you continue that trend if you are reelected?
Well, even in the first 6 weeks of this year, we're already off to a good start. We've only had 11 homicides versus we were at 24 this time last year. And that's through a myriad of things that we've put together through our Office of Violence Prevention, funding community partnerships, our community policing strategy that's been put in place by Chief Tracy, his CompStat methodology, leading with data, following where that goes, and our regional crime initiative, which brings together all of the leaders of our region to reduce crime even further through our Save Lives Now initiative, which we're going to reduce gun violence by an additional 20% and overall violent crime by an additional 20% by working together.
Back to what you said about youth violence. You just talked about the first 6 weeks of 2025. Actually, the latest SLMPD stats show youth violence is up so far this year, trending in the wrong direction. How do you combat that in the city?
Well, you know, we are not always going to be perfect, but that doesn't mean that just because things increase that they can't decrease further into the year. We're going to continue working with our youth and young people. We're going to continue keeping our rec centers open so they can have safe spaces to have fun and be kids, and continue working with our community partners to make sure that they can be there for our young people when they find themselves in precarious positions.
Are you committed working with Governor Mike Kehoe on several different issues if state control of the police department does become a reality again?
Well, you know, this is where the governor and I disagree because every police department around this country, except Kansas City, is a locally controlled police department. And the citizens of Missouri overwhelmingly voted back in 2012 to give St. Louis its police department back. I think that this is government overreach. And frankly, you know, this is not going to be an area where the two of us agree. And honestly, I think that people aren't listening to the facts here. There's some sort of boogeyman that people are listening to or people are afraid of, but the goalpost keeps moving. You know, crime is down, investment is up, and even our population is starting to take a shift back towards the positive. So I don't know what the reasons are behind this sudden move, but we are committed to working with our region's leaders, and I think the people of St. Louis deserve a locally controlled police department.
What has been your most recent conversation that you've had with the governor about this issue?
I haven't had one. Love to talk to him about it.
Let's talk about city services. Here at the station in our newsroom, we do get quite a few phone calls from City of St. Louis residents who are frustrated about either inconsistent services or sometimes not getting those services at all. We're talking trash pickup, most recently snow removal. What is happening within those departments where people aren't getting those services that they pay for?
Well, those services run at the speed of the people that we can hire to run those services. And there's a labor shortage all over the country, and St. Louis is no different. That doesn't mean, again, that we don't try. Our personnel department recently upgraded its software to be able to respond to people quicker when they do apply for the city for jobs within the city of St. Louis. However, we have to make sure that once they apply and once they are there, that they stay there. And that requires a change in culture. That also requires us to take a long, hard look at the benefits and the pay that we're offering people so they don't get picked up by private industry to make more doing the same job.
As I said, it seems not all exclusively, but we are hearing from residents in the city of St. Louis about these services. We don't necessarily hear from St. Charles City residents or Kirkwood residents. So why is it St. Louis City tends to, at least we're hearing from people about these issues and not other places?
Well, we would like them to call us instead of call you. They can call the Citizen Service Bureau at 314-622-4800. And we will take a look at their requests.
I mentioned snow removal. You publicly apologized for the city's response after January's snowstorm about clearing the roads. But why did it take more than a week for your office and other city departments to realize that the usual strategy that you use wasn't effective in this particular situation?
Well, I don't control the weather, and the ice that we thought was going to, the weather we thought that was going to change, it wasn't going to change. And we had snow, then followed by ice, followed by several days of cold temperatures, and that makes it difficult for our workers to break up that ice if the chemicals aren't working because it's too cold or the surface temperatures are too cold. We pivoted and called in other contractors to do so, to help us out. But again, we fell short of delivering services, and for that we do apologize. However, I think it's important for people to know what expectations are. The city of St. Louis has never, ever plowed residential streets because we would then further damage cars that are parked on both sides. The city of St. Louis is also not responsible for sidewalk clearance. Businesses and property owners are responsible for clearing their own sidewalks. So I think this was also a failure on our part to correctly identify what those expectations are of our citizens and what they could expect from us.
But the timeline, again, of it taking more than a week to say, you know, we're going to get other crews in here from other areas to help out with the situation. Why did that take over a week to figure that out?
Well, those other crews were also busy doing other things. Our forestry and parks were also busy cleaning up the places that they were responsible for before they could come in and help us, and also private contractors were busy doing other things before they could come and help us.
When it comes to some other city departments, recently several departments have been clouded in controversy, just so our viewers know what I'm talking about here. Currently, your office is seeking to terminate the employment of the Director of Personnel for violating the city's vehicle policies. There's a federal investigation into the city's building division looking into potential corruption. Many in the public, even the city comptroller and multiple aldermen, have called out the SLDC over the Northside Grants Program, and it's the focus now of Missouri State Auditor probe. Given the public's concern, when we're talking about SLDC, about the Northside Grants Program and other ARPA programs, do you believe that there needs to be a change in leadership at the SLDC?
Absolutely not. Neil Richardson is doing a great job as the leader of SLDC. And we have called in third-party auditors on the North City Grant Program. Armanino has been engaged and has audited the program and gave us the green light to proceed. Most of the money is already out the door and to the awardees. Now, I think that there is again, issue with how people perceive the program. We received over $500 million in requests for about $30 million in grants, which shows you that the need is real. This money was never meant to fully fund any particular project. This money was meant to help with a capital stack of money that people would get from other places, and we would help as a part of that. This was never meant to fully fund anybody's programs, and if also we extended the deadline several times to work with several businesses in the community who needed help completing the grant programs. Or the grant application, for example. We would receive information on the budget, for example, when we asked, well, what's the budget for your program? And some of the business owners would say, anything I can get. No, we need an actual budget. We need to know what these funds are going to go for. These are federal funds. We don't want any clawbacks, and we have worked with our auditors as well as fully vetting the businesses to make sure that they can spend these funds effectively over the next 2 years.
It seems like the concern from Comptroller Darlene Green mostly has been about transparency on the application process and how those grants and those funds were administered. Have you had conversations with her about those concerns?
Well, we invited the comptroller to sit on an advisory committee in January, and she has not responded. So she has full reign to come and sit with SLDC and be a part of the advisory committee going forward. So we invite her to respond to SLDC's message to come and sit on the advisory board.
I mentioned some of the other probes when it comes to some of the other city departments. Do you have confidence in the leaders of all those departments and all the departments in the city of St. Louis and the job they're doing right now?
Well, I will say this, of the departments that you mentioned, we just changed the leadership in the building division. And so sometimes when you change leadership, you know, some things come up that had been hidden for many, many years before. And so when we found these issues, we called the appropriate authorities and we're having them investigated. We're going to fix it. And that is unfortunately the job of the leader of the city government. When we find problems, we're going to call the appropriate authorities and we're going to fix them.
Let's talk about Rams money. As of right now, there has been no plan that has been voted on and approved by the Board of Aldermen to spend the $280 million in Rams settlement funds. There's been many town halls, there's been public surveys. No decision, as I said, has happened yet. What's taken so long?
Well, appropriations start at the Board of Aldermen, and we are committed to a public process. So over 16,000 people prevented or completed surveys. Over a whole host of people participated in the committees of the whole. And at the end of the day, both people on the Board of Aldermen decided that they weren't going to pass anything forward. Now, personally, I don't think that that's a bad thing, given what's currently happening at the federal level with the spending freezes and coming out of the Trump administration. It might not be a bad thing to hold on to these dollars for a little while longer until we see some stability coming from the federal government and knowing if we're going to be able to still draw down our federal grants, which at the last we checked is about $162 million of our annual budget.
There was a plan with the funds that you helped craft that went by the wayside and was not enacted. What happened behind the scenes where that plan fell through?
You know, I'm not into the day-to-day of what goes on at the Board of Aldermen. I know that was the plan that I supported, and at the end of the day, the alders decided that they didn't want to pass anything and wanted to wait until another day. So I have to respect that decision. You
mentioned all the input that the public has had with these Rams funds. What confidence should they have that you and your administration and the Board of Aldermen will actually put together a plan and approve a plan that foresees and fulfills what they want to see done with that money? Well, like I said, we did a whole host of public input. The two alders put together a plan that I think that a good majority of the board agreed upon. But again, at the end of the day, they decided that that's not what they wanted to pass. Appropriations of this nature start in the Board of Aldermen. Because there's been a lot of division when it comes to this money and a lot of different ideas floating around, as the mayor, how do you bring the leaders together, the Board of Aldermen, and help bring them together to come with up with a plan to move forward? Well, you know, we have those conversations, you know, and lots of times numbers are passed back and forth, and then we agree on a number, and sometimes that number is agreed on by, you know, a small amount of people, and then when it gets to committee, it changes, and then again, when it gets to the board, it changes. That is the sausage making that's going on. That's how, you know, the legislative process works. So hopefully we'll see something in April when the board comes back. Let's piggyback off of talking about Rams money and talk about downtown development. How important is safety, development downtown, growth of downtown for the success of the entire city of St. Louis and our metro region? Is downtown development a priority for you moving forward if you are reelected?
Yes, absolutely. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can pay attention to the needs of downtown and the needs of the rest of the city, which is what we have been doing. We have taken two of the largest buildings in our city's downtown and have put them under local ownership, the Millennium Hotel, as well as the Railway Exchange, or the old Macy's, or Famous Bar, as many people in the area know that building as. We are in the process of getting RFPs to redevelop those two large buildings, and they have a really catalytic footprint on the health and the wealth of downtown. We also have partnerships with Greater St. Louis Inc. For our retail incentive program, as well as SLDC, GSL, and I have been out to the International Shopping Centers Conference many times to let the rest of the world know that St. Louis is open for business, and we've received a lot of interest by going and traveling to these conferences.
You mentioned the Millennium Hotel and the Railway Exchange building, two huge pieces of property and a lot of eyeballs on that of what happens next. What do you want to see done with those properties?
You know what? I would just like to see some great development happen in both of those properties. You know, the Railway Exchange, I know we're not going to tear that down, so hopefully you know, a mixed-use development, because remember, those first few floors have really tall ceilings. So don't know what we could do with the first few floors, but and maybe the top floors can be a combination of residential or, you know, office space. A Millennium Hotel, that's a different one. I don't know if there are plans to demolish that and maybe build something up totally new. I think that whatever they come up with would be a wonderful addition to our streetscape and our landscape as people come across the Illinois Bridge.
As far as you're aware, what kind of conversations and interest has there already been from developers when it comes to those properties?
There are, I think, 3 proposals currently being evaluated for the Millennium Hotel site. We don't yet have total title to the Railway Exchange building because we're waiting for the eminent domain proceedings to finish. But once we do, we'll be able to put out an RFP for that building as well.
When I talked to you 4 years ago, you were running for mayor, of course, and we talked a little bit about the earnings tax. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you mentioned to me when I mentioned the fact that the earnings tax makes up over 1/3 of the general fund in the city of St. Louis. Mm-hmm. I just want to read the quote that you said back 4 years ago. You said, "I'm worried that it's such a large portion of revenue. So as mayor, I want to look at all of our sources and use funds and develop a strategy where we wouldn't be as dependent on one source of revenue," end quote. Mm-hmm. Here we are 4 years later, and 36% still is what the earnings tax makes up of the general fund. Mm-hmm. Why are we sitting here 4 years later and it's still such a big part of the general fund?
Well, because I signed an executive order to appoint a long-term revenue commission, and they are still doing their work to look at all of our sources of funds, the last time they were updated, and how they are updated, whether that's state law, local law, or just by an ordinance. And hopefully they will come back with some ideas for us so we are not as reliant on the earnings tax, because that is, and especially with us having to reallocate or revote every 5 years, that is it's a vulnerability for our budget. Also, we should be looking at how we grow our city's population, how we increase our tax base, especially how we increase our tax base and rebuild housing and other industry in North St. Louis and parts of South St. Louis, so people can have access to everything that they need no matter what part of the city they live in. So those strategies of rebuilding our communities will eventually expand our tax base, and maybe we will become less reliant on the earnings tax.
The earnings tax has been in place since 1954. You've been an advocate of doing things differently in the city of St. Louis. Is it time to get rid of the earnings tax? And how would you make up for that revenue? Well,
not until we have identified a source of funds that's going to replace it. So it would be catastrophic for us to get rid of the earnings tax without a plan to replace it with one or more sources of funds. I don't want to replace it with just one, because then we're still in the same predicament of having a vulnerable large chunk of our revenue. So we need to, again, follow the work of the Long-Term Revenue Commission to see what they bring back as far as what our options are, and hopefully follow that path.
Do you believe the earnings tax is a hindrance for people and businesses to come and do business in the city of St. Louis?
Absolutely not, because we see that investment is up in the city of St. Louis. There are businesses that are deciding to relocate here, and they are not asking for us to get rid of the earnings tax, or they won't relocate or expand. Procter & Gamble expanded their footprint in North St. Louis. ICL expanded their footprint in North St. Louis by building a new battery plant. Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield is moving to a new facility, a new building in downtown St. Louis, and they haven't asked for for us to forgive the earnings tax for them to expand. So I don't think it's a hindrance at all.
You mentioned the commission looking into this issue. What's the timeline of them getting some of that work done?
They started just back in the fall, so hopefully by this spring we'll have a report.
I want to mention a couple other areas, or cities, I should say, throughout the country. Indianapolis, Louisville, Nashville, Denver, all have merged their cities and counties into one. All of them are growing, and they're actively competing with the city of St. Louis. They're growing their populations. We're losing people in the St. Louis region. So do you support a city and county merger?
I don't support a city and county merger. I don't think it's necessary for us to grow. I don't think it's necessary for us to work together. We're already working together on several different initiatives. I talked about our Save Lives Now initiative, and we're also working together on eradicating homelessness as a region. I do think that our economic development partnership does a good job at making sure that we blur those lines and that we're not competing against each other for various projects and various businesses. I think that we just need to learn how to work together in the same room rather than just merging. And truth be told, I mean, there's more to a merger than just the city re-entering the county. We still have another 88 municipalities and 50 plus police departments and 50 plus fire districts in St. Louis County. And St. Louis only has one of everything. So I think that our government is a lot more efficient and fiscally healthy.
So you think our city can have the same success as Indianapolis, Louisville, Nashville that I just mentioned as two separate entities in a city and the county?
It only makes a difference to us. Nobody knows that we're a separate city and county until they get here, and I don't think it makes a difference.
You've been very focused, as you said, on getting new business into St. Louis. You do a lot of traveling. There was a report recently done by the St. Louis Business Journal that found that you've taken 64 different work trips in the first 42 months as mayor. That's far more than your predecessors. You said that you've done those trips because you're getting and securing funds and grant money for different projects in the city of St. Louis. Can you talk specifically about some of the projects that those grant dollars are going towards, that those trips that you talked about or that you've taken have helped secure? Can you talk specifically?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. $25 million for the Build Back Better grant that's going to help build the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Center just south or east of Rankin's campus. $25 million in disaster relief, so the people of the neighborhood of Ellendale and Penrose and others who experienced floods in the year in July 2022 can start to repair their homes or buy out their homes if they want to sell that. Another $1.5 million for our youth build program that's run through Slate that keeps our young people off the streets and teaches them skills so they can then enter the trades. Another $156 million as a part of a conglomerate of cities through the Solar for All program. Another $8 million for through the EPA for planting more trees so we can reduce heat islands. Millions of dollars through Bloomberg Philanthropies to train our city staff, our city workers, and the staff in my office on how to recognize other trends going on around the country. And and our current I team that's going to be here helping our sustainability initiatives for the next 3 years. I can keep going. I got more.
Those different projects and the entities involved in those various things, have they made on-site visits here in St. Louis to see those dollars in action and to kind of help implement some of these projects?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
Yes, they have.
And should voters expect kind of the same type of travel if you are reelected?
Well, you can't have it both ways. People said that they want a world-class city. Well, in order to have a world-class city, you need to go out and see how the rest of the world works. And that's exactly what we've been doing. We've brought in best practices that have been in other cities back to St. Louis. The Office of Violence Prevention, we got that idea from Newark, New Jersey. We went and visited their Office of Violence Prevention and their efforts and how they help youth and young people stay out of trouble and show them a different way. We have seen, for example, cops and clinicians. We went to visit that in Denver, and we're able to bring that back to St. Louis. And also our non-police response, our crisis team, that also we got that from Denver. So you have to see what the rest of the world is doing instead of staying here and expecting people to come to you.
I know you're running for mayor, but do you have any future aspirations, possibly of a higher office, maybe even running in the 1st Congressional District against Wesley Bell in a couple of years?
Not at all. God told me that he wanted me to be the mayor of the city of St. Louis for at least 2 terms. I don't know about the 3rd, but I feel like my work is here. And I don't have any foreseeable other political aspirations. This is hard enough.
Last question I have for you, Mayor. Obviously, there's a lot of rhetoric politically in our country right now. How can you be a mayor of a person that just brings people together in a time that is, some might view, a little chaotic right now?
Well, I've been doing that over the last 4 years. I can work with people that I don't always agree with, as evidenced as I've been the chair of East-West Gateway, which is the region's county executives from all the way from O'Fallon, Missouri to O'Fallon, Illinois. We don't always agree. We fight at the table. But at the end of the day, we all know that we're working towards moving our region forward. So the things that we don't agree on, we just don't agree, and then we keep it moving. And it's going to take that same level of collaboration and cooperation in order to survive these next 4 years. But also, we need someone who's going to fight for St. Louis, who's going to speak up. And I'm already at those tables as a result of my leadership in several national organizations. St. Louis is at the table. These aren't vanity trips. I'm working. And I'm not spending time with my son because I'm out here working for the citizens of the city of St. Louis to make sure that we're at the table, that we're not passed over when it comes to federal grants and other private investment, and to make sure that we're moving our region forward. We are going to be that next great city that of the cities that you described. We're next.
Mayor Tishaura Jones, really appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.